My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to This Song Is Yours, a music podcast where we chat to a new guest each week, talk about their life and creative endeavours, and talk to them about some of the music they love. Our show works by chatting to our guests about music, but also getting them to make you a playlist of the songs they love. You can find the link to our playlist in the show notes. Welcome to episode 74. I'm your host, Simon Fink. Our guest today is David Duchovny. The actor, author and musician is releasing his third studio record tomorrow, entitled Gestureland. In today's episode, we're talking with David about the new record, his creative process, his new novel, and the music of Joni Mitchell and the Beatles. Here we go. Our guest today is a true multi-hyphenate. On top of his well-known roles in shows like The X-Files and Californication, he's also a producer, director, author and singer-songwriter. Earlier this year, he released his brilliant novel Truly Like Lightning, and tomorrow he releases his third studio record, Gestureland. Please welcome to This Song Is Yours, David Duchovny. Good afternoon where you are. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thanks for having me on your show.
Of course. Thank you very much for coming on. Firstly, happy birthday for a few days. This weekend, of course. Yeah. Gestureland, the new record from yourself, the third studio record, is out tomorrow. Congratulations. How does it feel to finally have these songs out?
Oh, it's been a long time coming. The last album was 2018, and we were working on this album about a year and a half ago, almost done with it about a year and a half ago when we had to shut down for, I don't know if you heard, but there's a worldwide pandemic happening. So that shut us down for as long as everybody else got shut down. And in terms of making music, it's a very difficult proposition because you're in a room and you're expectorating, you're singing, you're blowing into wind instruments. It's just a recipe for COVID disaster. So we really had to wait, and we were very close to being finished. We had horns to go and harmonies and those things that were dangerous in a room. So it gave us a long time to kind of sit with the songs, which I think in the end was a good thing, because as we sat with them, we kind of expanded our production palette a little bit. I kind of, we were able to kind of play around with arrangements and versions of songs more than we might have had we just kind of rushed to get it out, when we were actually doing it. So I feel good about it because we came more together as a band, more together as kind of a musical entity, I think, where it's not like my ideas and they're trying to embody them or musically embody them. It's more like a negotiation, and we're all having ideas and we're all kind of pitching in the room and pitching sounds and pitching rhythms and pitching, how does the song want to come across? Because for me, it's always about, the emotionality of a song. Usually I write a song, I want it to have, if I'm writing a song, it's usually like I want to get something across, some kind of a feeling. And I want it to come across. And sometimes as you go through the many iterations of the song and production, it'll go from me in a room with a guitar pressing record on my garage phone and singing it. And, my iPad going dark at one point, and I can say fuck, and then I punch my iPad again and I pick it up. So it's like that. And sometimes as we go along, as bad as that first version is, it has an emotionality that I start to lose. So that's something that we go back and forth on as a band. It's like, I don't know what's going on, guys, but this song is no longer affecting me. And I don't think it's because I've heard it 1,000 times as we've been trying to do it. I think we've lost the basicness of it somewhere. So let's go back and try to find that. So that's very interesting to me too. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I can imagine that, especially if you're sitting with these songs for, where are we now, like 18 months or so, that there might be the inclination to kind of like go back, re-listen and touch up, not everything, but I imagine that it takes some restraint to not completely change everything.
Well, I have had a lot of experience with this, just making TV and movies or even writing, where and I just had this conversation with these collaborators that I have for adapting my book into a show. And I said to them, I'm going to make changes because they're doing the bulk of the writing, but I'm going to get it and I'm going to make changes and I'm going to have ideas. And then there's going to come a point where I'm going to start to make it worse. Like I'm going to be making it better. I'm going to be making it better. And then I'm going to start making it worse. And I don't know when that time comes. I'm always trying to make it better. I mean, I'm trying to make it worse, but there comes a point where I think I lose the thread of the original inspiration or something, and I start to make it worse. And I think the same thing with a song. So you do have to, and with editing, like with editing a movie or a television show, you can play with seconds and milliseconds till you could years you could do it. I mean, they say you never finish a movie, they just take it away from you. And that's partly true. I guess with music, there are some famous examples where people have had too much time and they've muddied the original impulse. But I'm aware that I can get to, it's not perfectionism either. It's just, I think it's too much distance from the original inspiration, and then you start to turn the song into something that it's not.
You just a second ago you touched on the book that you're turning into a TV show. We're not usually a props kind of podcast because obviously it doesn't really work with the medium. We do have this here. We did want to touch on. Because you are quite prolific in your output of work. I'm curious how you differentiate or how you are able to kind of work out what might be appropriate for the book and then what might work for songwriting, and whether that lapses at any point.
That doesn't quite lapse. I think how I would answer that is that when turning the book into a TV show, there are differences there. What might work in a book might not work in a TV show, and vice versa. But I'm a man of limited ideas. So if I get an idea, I'm going to ask: is this a song idea? Is this a story idea? Is this a pilot idea? Is this a novel idea? So that's how that happens. Usually, just that feels like a song. I don't think I've ever mistaken a song for a novel or a novel for a song. Perhaps it seems those two things as ideas occur to me very, very differently. So I don't really get confused that way. But certainly I get inspired to listen to different kinds of music when I'm writing, and then that will affect what kind of music I'll be writing. I think it's impossible not to be influenced by what you're listening to.
Yeah, of course. The collaboration process with your band, I know that it is kind of like you'll bring in some ideas, they'll bring in some ideas. How do you find that process with them? And I guess what are some of the pros of that? And then what are some of the cons? Has there ever been a time where they've come back with something and been like, no, this is shit?
I don't think it's ever. I've never said shit, but I think it's what I said to you earlier. It's like that. I'm losing the song. I'm losing the emotional element, and and usually in the beginning it was mostly I would send them what I thought was basically a finished song, not with instrumentation or anything, but, just me playing on guitar. And they'll pitch different like chord changes. Sometimes they'll take it into a different key, things like that. And we'll just play around with it. They'll write more, they'll add a bridge, or they'll, tweak the chorus, things like that. It's very, very back and forth. But in the last album, there was more of them coming to me. Like there were a couple of times where I just dumped a bunch of lyrics on them. I think they had said, "Do you have any lyrics lying on us?" I have a bunch of words. I don't know if they're lyrics. So I dumped them on them, and then Colin came back with some of them that I'd totally forgotten about, because that was like a year after I did that. He had this song Tessera, which is like the second single from this album. And I just thought it was so beautiful what he'd done with it. And I was like, "Oh, where did you get those lyrics?" He's like, "Those are your lyrics." I was like, "Oh, I didn't even remember." And he only had like one verse and a chorus. And I was like, and Colin has done that a couple times. He did it with a song called Marble Sun, whereas like he just had a verse and a chorus. And I was like, "I can't believe you, because this is a beautiful song. Why would you just want to leave it as a fragment?" I was like, "What? Let's write another verse or two." It's like, so he's very, he's humble that way. I mean, I say same with Tessera. I was like, "That's a song. That's a beautiful song. Let's write another verse. Let's clean it up."
Yeah, I was going to touch on Tessera, because it's a gorgeous song. It is one of like the softer moments of the record.
Yeah.
And you're singing, I think, in both Spanish and Latin, which I wouldn't have expected, but it's still very impressive.
You can't speak Latin, but you can sing.
Hey, it's still better than me, David. You're still killing it on that front. I'm curious, like, I know that you said it was kind of like a fragment, but do you remember the original inspiration for the lyrics for that song?
Yeah. For the lyrics, yes. That's what it's what it became. I mean, for me, it was Tessera. In my understanding, and I never really checked or Googled to see if it's true. So, if you're listening out there and I'm wrong, I'm only wrong because I'm wrong. The song isn't wrong. I'm wrong. So within the song, Tessera meant to me like a mosaic tile. Like when I studied English, they used this term Tessera. I don't remember where, but it was kind of it was like a trope of some kind of trying to interpret something, but you didn't have enough of the code. You only had like one mosaic tile. It was almost like you had a remainder of a meaning. You had a little piece of meaning of something that used to be a big meaning, and you just had this thing, this beautiful little colored tile, part of a mosaic. Literally, I think a tessera is a piece of mosaic tile. So in my mind, I just started, I think, at that point, just thinking about the kind of process of getting older, not myself, but of my parents and friends' parents. And where you kind of, people say, yeah, they lost the plot or whatever, but that's a joke. I mean, it was like just the idea of the mosaic kind of splintering a little bit and being left with images, pieces, thoughts that are kind of no longer related to the whole. You lose the integration of the world in your mind. And I thought that struck me as an emotional kind of a basis for a song, but also the fact that if we're being honest, it's not just old people. Obviously, they suffer that physically. But I think if we're being honest, our whole lives are these kinds of fragmented, trying to make big pictures out of whatever. Look at my hands. Just I have this plant, these little things in my hands, and I'm trying to make a whole life out of it, and I lose track of it. And it's just this back and forth between the piece and the whole. So that's kind of where that came from. And then Tessera just rhymed, and it just came to me. I mean, what else rhymes with Tessera? I mean, I don't think anything. So it was like, that also thematically it kind of fit in the way I was thinking. Even though I don't say que sera, sera, which is whatever will be, I repeat que sera, but it was that thought, this disintegration is inevitable. It's que sera, sera.
It is, it is a gorgeous song, and as you just said, it is, well, kind of addressing some of the more, I guess.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Serious things that we are going through in the human experience. Some of the
I mean, that's what I try to do in my songs is, obviously that this is a good example. I mean, if you care to hear, but it's like I start with something personal and I'm not writing confessional, or I'm not like writing allegorically or connect the dots or anything like that. I'm trying to make it universal. So I take this sense of getting older, which is not mine necessarily, but looking at older people in my life. And then I tried to make it universal as something that you don't have to be old to relate to.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Some of the other things you touch on in the record, there's one song that addresses it almost head on with still, obviously, a bit of subtlety, is Laying on the Tracks, which came out at around election season, dealing with a certain gentleman, or addressing a certain gentleman. Yeah. Probably too nice of a word to use for him, but that's all right.
Well, as I call him, the stupid orange man in a cheap red hat. Yes, I think that's how he prefers to be addressed.
When you are, I guess, approaching something that is as political as that, how do you find that balance of trying to, have some subtlety in it and not just call him or whoever it may be out point blank? Well,
I think it's a fine line, and I don't think that I walked it. I mean, obviously, if I write a line like a stupid orange man in a cheap red hat, it's not anything but name calling. I mean, that's all it is. It's not addressing his policies or anything like that. It's not smart. It just struck me as funny and apt. But in the song, that was a song that we kind of came together off of a couple different fragments that we've been playing around with. It wasn't like an integrated song off the bat. And we had one verse that was kind of personal and vague that Colin had actually written. And then we had the second verse that was kind of political. And then we were just playing around with it. And I said, let's just, lean into that political. I've just really never done that. Let's just make this a political song. And then I was like, let's get it out before, then we shut down, COVID and everything. And then, I said, is there any way we can get this out before the election? Not because I imagined I had any kind of mass swaying power of the vote or any kind of deluded sense like that. But I just kind of wanted to go on record as saying, I don't like this guy. I don't like what he's doing. I wish he did vote for someone else. But it was almost like that sense of, I forget what it was. It was some great speaker who said, we have to throw our shoulders to the wheels of the machinery and, stop them. So it was my sense of like laying on the tracks to stop this train. And, I was satisfied, aside from that line, which I liked, but as I admit, it's just stupid name calling and incendiary, and it's going to turn off anybody that has any kind of openness to this guy. And they're going to say, well, fuck that song. You're just calling him, how dare you talk about president like that? So, that's not a winning strategy in terms of like changing somebody's mind. But I think if you look at the lyrics, they're more introspective. The other lyrics are more introspective than that, and it's not just name calling this guy. It's also pointing a finger at me and saying, I turned away. I wasn't involved. That's a shameful thing for me, because how could I not notice your suffering? How could I not respond to your suffering? I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of seeking attention in the first verse, I think. The part of me that needed love, I had something like that. I had to kill, I had to kind of deal with this needy part of myself to become a more whole person. So there's a lot of, underneath that one line, there's a lot of introspection, which I feel better about the song. It's not just like, fuck Trump, fuck you, fuck, which that one line is, but which is fine. I think there's a place for that song because the guy certainly deserves it, but that's not this song,
Of course, I think that would have been a lot less subtle and might have caused a bit more of a attention, good or bad.
There is a song. I think there is a song called "Fuck Trump." I think there was a song.
Who is it? It's by. Yeah. I'm going to get it wrong. It's a hip hop song where it just literally says "Fuck Trump," which is
hip hop song. Yeah.
The last track I wanted to talk about on the album before we get to your playlist is "Call Me When You Land," which is this beautiful ambient almost like song. Is that, I guess, kind of a sonic soundscape we could see you moving towards in future records?
That's a really good song to single out because in regards to the earlier part of our conversation, because that was a song that was very moving to me when I wrote it. And because it was about my kids, it was about, it was really, I'd always want to write My Cats in the Cradle. Like I cried that song all the time. I was like, I got to write My Cats in the Cradle. I was like, there's two songs I want to write. I want to write My Cats in the Cradle, and I can't remember what the other one is. Fuck. But anyway, I want to write My Cats in the Cradle. So I was like, okay, this is a Cats in the Cradle idea. Call me when you land. When your kid gets on a plane for the first time and you're dying, and just like, call me when you land. And it's like, okay, that's the Cats in the Cradle idea. Now I write the song, and I'm moved by it, and we start to play around with it. And it took us a long time because I stopped being moved by it. I was like, no, what's going on here? Like, there's too much going on. I'm losing the drive, the emotional drive of the song. And I really, it was hard, I think, on Pat and Colin and Mitch about it because, they're not parents either. So I was like, no, this song should really make you feel something. And, I kept on saying, no. And then finally, we got to this, and I was like, okay, and now I'm starting to feel it again. And I think it was that ambient sound that you talk about was really something that they created. That's not something that I would ever, you can't write that on a guitar, So I don't, I haven't. So that was really Colin and Pat kind of, starting to jazz it up a little bit, have some jazzy kind of chords, and then create that sound for it that I think ultimately really worked.
It is a gorgeous song, and I think it does kind of have elements. I might not have gotten there myself, but you mentioning Cats in the Cradle, I think that does kind of, fit into that same wheelhouse, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's the sense that a parent has when their child has grown of the things that you did wrong or that you missed, and it's universal in that way. And it's not, again, there's nothing specific in there. It's all very cliched images, which I like to work in and try to make them, new again in some recombination. So,
of course.
Yeah.
David, would you be happy to talk about the playlist that you sent through?
Yeah, go ahead. Tell it to me.
It is it's an absolutely classic playlist. You've got some Bob Dylan, some Lou Reed. We've got Al Green. I'm curious. There's one Beatles track, "While My Guitar Gently Weeps." Out of all the Beatles tracks that you could have picked from, why does this one stand out to you?
Well, it's an impossible task to ask for 15 songs, because if I sat down today, I would probably write 15 different songs, and I could probably not repeat any of those for a week, So that was just me sitting down, and I was like, I'm not going to sweat this. I'm not going to try to game it, try to come off a certain way. I'm just going to whatever comes to mind. Desert Island. I'm stuck with these songs for the rest of my life. While My Guitar Gently Weeps, I find it very moving. I find it, I learned how to play. It was one of the first songs that I learned how to play on the guitar. So I'm kind of attached to it that way. I've just always, I had the White Album when I was a kid. It was probably maybe the first Beatles song that I heard for the first time when everybody else heard it for the first time. The other Beatles albums, I think, came to me from the past, but this was 1969, 70, and I actually had the White Album when it was out, and I listened to that song, and I just remember loving it and loving it. Eric Clapton, I didn't know it was Eric Clapton, but I loved Eric Clapton's lead in it. I thought it was so beautiful, and I just love the song. I love the sentiment. The lyrics are, if you see them on a page, they're very cliched kind of and soft, but in the song itself, I mean, I'd be scared to write a lyric, "While My Guitar Gently Weeps." I mean, it's really? But, God bless George Harrison for having the balls to do it, and it works.
It's definitely, as if I'd never thought of it like that, but you said it's an interesting line to write and actually come across succinctly and not in a kind of corny or schmaltzy way. So, I mean, it's amazing when you look at the lyrics, which I didn't when I wrote it down, but I'm thinking, I noticed, I look at the floor and I notice, and I see it needs sweeping. I mean, it's clearly just a rhyme for weeping. I mean, it's it has no business, and yet it works. It works beautifully. It has no business in the song, right? And that's one of the great things about lyric writing is the rhymes will force you into places that aren't logical, and sometimes they're blatantly reaches like this, and then sometimes they don't work. They fail spectacularly, but not in this case. Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. There's some other fantastic singer-songwriters on the playlist as well, including Neil Young and Joni Mitchell. The song that you picked by Joni Mitchell, "Woodstock," what does this song mean to you, or what memories do you have of this song?
I think the first time I heard that song would have been the Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young version, and I didn't know originally that she'd written it. But I think, Joni Mitchell is just such a unique voice. I don't know how she tunes her guitar. I could never get my guitar to sound like hers. So, everything about her writing and her playing and her singing is unique. I mean, there's nobody sounds like Joni Mitchell, and lyrically, she's fantastic. Just really smart, and that song is really a capsule of the 60s. It really sums up. And I never knew that the rhyme was. I knew it was we got to get back to the garden, but I didn't know she was rhyming garden with carbon. She says we're a million-year-old carbon, and it's kind of hidden in the mix. I was like, wow. Again, there's another example. You're going to rhyme carbon with garden? All right. Not me, but you go ahead and do it, and it works. It works really nicely.
We're definitely picking apart some singer-songwriters today. I like it. Mazzy Star.
Yeah.
Mazzy Star, Fade Into You, a gorgeous song from the 90s.
Yeah, that's an ambient kind of a sound,
Yes,
And that's also another voice that is unique. And they always seem to me just a perfect blend of voice, production, and sentiment. You know, if a song ever sounded like it was fading into you, it's that song, and that's what that song is. You know, there's just a great sense of longing in it, regret almost. I like it, I love it.
It is. I feel, I think you just hit the nail on the head. That song does almost sound exactly like what it's doing in terms of audibly being something that you're fading into. David, congratulations again on Gestureland. It is out tomorrow worldwide. And thank you very much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for rising early for me.
And that's our show. A massive thank you to David Duchovny for his time. Gestureland is out tomorrow, and we've left links in the show notes if you'd like to buy or stream the record. We also want to give a huge shout out to Erika Tooker for helping out with today's interview. You can find a link to our Spotify playlist in the show notes, where you'll be able to listen to all of David's picks. If you like this show, please subscribe wherever you get your pods and stay up to date when new episodes are released. We release new shows each Thursday and Friday morning, with guest playlists streaming on Spotify at the same time. You can follow the playlist profile on Spotify. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Until next week, cheers.
Never sleep hot again with Boll & Branch's best-selling naturally cooling sheets. They feel super crisp and cool to the touch and are expertly designed for enhanced breathability so you don't overheat at night. Start getting your best night's sleep this summer with cooling sheets made with the highest quality materials. Try Boll & Branch with a 30-night worry-free guarantee. Plus, get 15% off and free shipping on your first set of sheets at bollandbranch.com with code BUTTERY. Exclusions apply. See site for details.